Hello everyone, and thank you so much for coming. My name is Claire Chen, and I'll be the moderator for today's event. Before we start, I want to remind everyone that we will be having an audience Q&A at the end of the event. So if you think of any questions for Carla during the event, please wait until after, and then you'll have time to ask them. Carla, thank you so much for being here with us tonight, and it's a pleasure to have you at the forum.
Oh, thank you. Muchas gracias.
To start off, I'd like to ask you a little bit about your background and how it's influenced your musical journey. So in past interviews, you've discussed how spending your childhood in Tecate, Mexico, and your teenage years in Phoenix, Arizona have led to a mixed heritage. How has this upbringing and identity affected you on your musical journey?
Okay. So before I answer your question, thank you everyone for coming. Muchas gracias. I wish I could do this all in Spanish, but I know many of you don't speak Spanish, so I will do it in English just because of that reason. But I'm very proud and honored to be Mexican, and so I love it. I love it when I can speak in Spanish because I know it connects directly to your guys' hearts more so when you're in an American soil and we feel like we don't belong. But we want everyone to understand, so we'll do it in English, okay? Now, I think when I was young, and I was in Tecate and I was in the border, it was really nice because I felt like, well, Tecate is such a little town, and es un ranchito. It's like a little town, but it's literally on the border of San Diego. So my family would always take me back and forth for like food or or to Goodwill or Target, and then we'd go back home. But I think it was really funny because in Mexico it was very Mexican. Everything was Ramon Ayala and like all these rancheras. But in the U.S. it was all about I don't know, like, well, it was California, so it was about Bob Marley, Sublime, and these different like music genres. And so I learned from both sides, and it used to make me feel very like I didn't know where I belonged, because I was like, man, when I'm in Mexico, it's like I'm too como güerita. But when I'm in the US, I'm Mexican, so I don't know who I am. And I felt like I was kind of cut in half for all of my younger years. And I felt like it was something that was messing with me and with my identity. And it made me feel like I didn't know where I belonged for the longest time. And now that I'm older, I think probably right after like 24 years old, I realized that it was a good thing because it made me be more international, be more open. I could actually be friends with anybody who I encountered in life. And at the same time, it's hard at first when you're growing up, but it really inspired my music too. Because when I was on this side of the, I don't know, the border, I felt very like I missed Mexico a lot, so that would show up in my songwriting. But then when I was in Mexico, I felt like, oh man, I miss Patsy Cline and I miss all this like beautiful music that I used to listen to. So it really inspired me, I guess, because I was always melancholic. I always missed one place or the other. Also because, a little bit of a backstory, my dad is Mexican. It was Mexican. He passed away. And he was from Durango, but when he was 13 or 14, he told my grandma that he was gonna go and travel the world. And my abuelita was like, ajá, sí. And he left. And he left. And he crossed the border when there was no borders, like actual borders, He crossed the border, and this beautiful man, his name was William Morrison, adopted him. So that's why I'm Morrison. But my abuelito William, my grandpa, he was like around 30 something, like 35 or something. And he met my dad at a place where they worked. And my dad wanted to go back like 3 months later. And so my abuelito was like, no, I'll adopt you. And so my dad was like, no, I don't want to. I miss Mexico. This is boring. But he was like, no, I can give you a better life. And so my dad called my grandma and said, hey, there's this guy that wants to adopt me. I really like him. He's a really cool guy. And my abuelita was like, okay. So my dad got adopted. And so from the time he was like 14 and up, he was like super American, you know, like my dad was super Chicano. So that's why I'm like this, you know, and this is why like my dad would listen to Patsy Cline and Neil Diamond and mi mamá would be like Ana Gabriel and Rocío Dúrcal, Mocedades. And then my older sister would listen to Britney Spears. My brother would listen to 311, Morrissey. And so it was kind of like all around. And so that's why I've always felt like, you know, like that milk, that half and half. I've always felt that way. But at the same time, at the end of the day, yo soy mexicana. Yeah.
Since then, you've had over a decade of experience with honing your musical sound and what you want to kind of convey in your music. And this has garnered you 3 studio albums, 2 Grammy Award nominations, and 3 Latin Grammy Awards, all of which are very well deserved. So can you kind of walk us through your creative process and what it's like for you when you make a song?
Okay. Well, when I make a song, usually, yesterday I was talking to my husband and I was like, how do I make songs, babe? Because honestly, when I make songs, I'm not like thinking about it. I'm just like dramatic and I write the song. I romanticize everything in my life. And so he was like, well, I think you're a good listener. And I was like, oh, really? So we were having this conversation and I think it's something that I've learned in Tecate, which was, and Tecate it's such a little town that there wasn't a lot to do. And you would have to kind of invent your hobbies or whatever you wanted to do, you know? And I would spend many times, I would lay down in my bed and just look at the window and look at the trees and just kind of like zone out and like listen to the birds and just kind of like be there. And so throughout my life, when I write a song, usually it's because I am listening. And when you listen with your heart is where you can find songs. And I feel like, well, for the longest time, I would listen to my broken heart because that's easy, you know, to write a song. I mean, for me, it's easy to write a song when you're brokenhearted because it's so easy to describe it. And so usually what I do is just go through whatever I'm feeling and not being afraid to be vulnerable. Because nowadays we tend to put like our guard up and try and show that our life is perfect and that, I don't know, that you don't struggle. But sometimes life isn't easy. Usually all of the time, most of the time, life can be very challenging. And so what I try is not be scared of being vulnerable. And I just sit at the piano and I write what I'm feeling. But sometimes it's funny because I'll have like months that I won't write any song. And then there's a moment where I start to feel like I want to write about something. And then I see somebody, you know, when I'm in Paris, I see somebody on the metro and like it strikes me, you know, their sight. Or if I'm listening to something or I see somebody saying goodbye on the metro and I'm like, oh, what happened there? And, you know, things like that. It can be anything. And then I go to my piano and I just get a chord progression and I just start playing and then I start to just like sing and kind of let it out and don't be afraid of like what comes out. Because sometimes also as a songwriter, you feel like, oh, I want to write the most poetic, perfect, beautiful phrase, you know? But sometimes somebody won't understand it. And the whole meaning of art is connecting. And so sometimes you just have to say it how it feels to you because it probably will feel like that for somebody else and you'll feel connected. So I try to be as honest as possible and listen to life, but listen with my heart. Because when you listen with your mind, you're calculating and you're thinking about it in a more like mental way, but when you listen with your heart, you're listening in a whole different frequency that we all know, but we don't really speak of all the time. So that's kind of like my creative process.
Thank you. You mentioned Paris in your answer, in which in the last decade you took a 5-year hiatus from 2018 to 2022, where in 2018 you pretty much packed up all your bags, moved to Paris, and decided to learn a lot of new skills like how to speak French or relearning the fundamentals of jazz. Looking back on this time, how did your decision to expose yourself to such a drastically new environment both push your personal and artistic growth?
I mean, it pushed me because at the moment I was having a lot of success in Mexico, Mexico City, Mexico, like as a country. But I wasn't having any time, like personal time. And really Paris wasn't my idea, it was my husband's idea. I'm from Tecate. I don't, my dream was just get to Target, like, déjenme en paz en la Target. Buy all the stuff that I don't need. But so my husband said, hey, I would love to study a master's in Paris. And I was like, really? Why? And he kept saying that to me. And then one day I was super burned out because I just kept making albums, interviews, touring, touring. Like it was just like that all the time. And so I was burned out and I was sad, I was depressed, I was anxious. And I said, you still want to go to Paris? And he was like, why? I'm like, because maybe I want to come. And so going there was very challenging because it's crazy to be in a place where you can't really say even hi. I was like, man, how do I say even thank you? Like, I don't even know how to talk here. But at the same time, it showed me how smart I was and how adaptable I was and how freeing it felt to be in a place where nobody really cared about me. And it was like, oh, this is nice. Like I could fall on my face and nobody would care or get drunk. Don't do that. So I remember just, it felt so freeing. And also just learning French is such a hard language because even though it's from within the romantic, how do you say, lenguas románticas? It's still super hard. And then going to jazz school, it was a conservatory. So in France, depending on where you live, there's like a conservatory where you can actually apply, and it doesn't matter what age you are. You can still go to a conservatory. So by that time I was 30, and I was like, oh, I can go into conservatory at my age, like, because I had never gone to school for music. And I remember I went and I did the audition, and I kept it a secret for a whole year. Nobody knew what I actually did at all. And I was like, nobody can know. Like, I don't want anyone to know. But when they did the audition, I was by myself with my teachers, and they said, okay, so if you don't know how to read music, but you know how to sing, why do you want to go to school? And I said, because I want to learn. And they said, well, but why don't you go to the US? And I said, because I didn't want to. I wanted to come here. I said, honestly, I actually do have I even have Grammys, I said, but I don't know how to read music, but I want to learn. And if you give me a chance, I'll try my best. They did not call me until like a week later. I was like, Dios mío. I was so worried because we're already there. So it challenged me to really work for the stuff that I wanted, for my dreams, which was really learning. And then when I went to school, I thought I was super chill with my like songwriting, and like jazz is like super chill. And so I was like doing all these like things that they were asking me, and I was like, no, that's not the way it is. And I kept having this like formula in my head, and then I was like, girl, you're not chill. Like, you're so worried about this. And so it really challenged me to see music in a whole different way, and also to be very grateful because I would see my classmates be super bummed out by like a solo. They would do an amazing solo, and then they would end their solo and be like, I didn't do it right. And I was like, that was amazing. And I was like, man, these people go to school and study, and I have Grammys, and I did not go to school. like, Dios mío, this is a gift. Like, this is crazy. Why am I leaving music now? You know, like I do this and I do it right. And there's people that actually don't even have the courage to go out there and do it. So it really challenged me emotionally, spiritually, intellectually. It made me realize so many things because I was outside of my box and just being like I am a normal civilian, but like in a whole different country. And so I learned so much from my peers, from like, you know, my classmates, and just from the culture also, because French are very protective of their rest and of their coffees and their cigarettes. And so having like pauses, like the teachers would take pauses and be like, oh, let's have a pause. Let's have some coffee. And I was like, what? Like, are we in class? No, relax. Let's go get some coffee. And then they would smoke. And I was like, we're like, what? This is so weird. And I felt like this was so wrong. But they're so chill. And then I would take my laptop to a coffee. And they're like, no. This is coffee time. This is no laptop time. I'm like, what? So it really challenged me in a whole different way. After like 6 months, I was all in. I was like, no, see, this is the way. But when you're so fast paced, and then you go there and they're like, no, you sit down, you have coffee, and you people watch. And I was like, really? Yes. And you enjoy that. So that with music and just the language and everything, just, it like blew my mind.
You mentioned that one of the reasons why you felt like going to France was a good idea was because how people didn't really recognize you or care about you per se. And you mentioned previously before that one of the reasons why you felt stifled and took the hiatus was because the public eye was kind of a lot to deal with. And it was difficult to deal with everyone kind of criticizing every move that you made. And a lot of big artists have to deal with this issue of how having a large audience can be both a blessing and a burden. So kind of in this new stage of your life, how do you see yourself both protecting your own personal self while also maintaining your life in the spotlight?
Well, it's right now, honestly, I feel like when I was making these decisions, it was easier. I feel like right now, people are very exposed. So back then, it felt very hard for me to like say something because as a Chicana, I forget acentos y comas and like, you know, the way that you write, what has an accent or not. And whenever I would do that without an accent or without a coma, well placed, it was horrible on Twitter. But because they were like, well, you write music, why do you do that? And I was like, yo soy Chicana, déjeme en paz. Like I went to school in both places. Like I forget, you know, I had to learn Spanish and then I had to learn English. Like it was hard, but nobody cared. And so, but that was like when MySpace was, you know, that was a long time ago. But now, honestly, I feel like the only way to keep it real is to really keep your privacy. And like, you don't have to share everything on social media. Also as a creative, like at least as an artist for me, it's important to keep a level of mystery around me. And at the same time of privacy, because I love my private life. I love when people don't care about me. And when I say people don't care about me, I mean like if I go to the street or Target, but like that, you know, that I can be a normal person. So I feel like I try and really, whenever I'm on tour, I'll post, I'll put things up and all that stuff. But when I'm not, I'm not. I'm at home, I'm cooking, I'm with my doggies who are so toxic. They need so much attention. But I try to really keep it in a way where it's, human, you know, because right now everybody wants to be the star of their own Instagram or TikTok show. And sometimes you just have to sit down and not do that, you know.
Taking both this mindset and the experiences that you had in Paris, you came out of your hiatus in 2022 with your new album, El Renacimiento, which translates to rebirth. And this album is characterized by a new blend of pop instrumentation and R&B sounds, along with touching on new themes of mental health. So how do you feel like this album reflects the themes that you want to amplify and convey in your future music?
Well, I feel like when we were doing that album, my husband did ask me, "Are you sure you want to go this way?" Because I used to be very singer-songwriter, guitar, and very like folk. But I wanted to try something new because I wanted my music to sound how whatever music I was listening to. So I feel like with El Renacimiento, I feel like it's the beginning of many new songs that are gonna not only talk about heartbreak, but also about life experiences. Because in this album, I do touch a lot about mental health and depression because I did go through that. I mean, I've had anxiety for the longest time, but depression I hadn't. And when I went through depression, it was really, really hard for me. And it was also hard for me to talk about it because every time I talk about it, I cry or I feel sad. But it's something that I feel like if we share more, it's something that everybody can relate to, and that at some point you felt like you don't want to keep going. And so I feel like El Renacimiento is like the beginning of many, many new songs that are going to talk about, you know, that part of life that many of us don't really touch upon sometimes. And just being free, you know, like making music that makes me happy no matter what.
Thank you so much for that answer. You talk a bit about how it's also really difficult to talk about mental health, especially in a lot of different cultures. It's kind of a taboo topic, so it's really hard to mention. Can you elaborate more on why you feel like it's important that you put your own personal experiences in your music to kind of open up this conversation?
Yes, well, mental health in Mexico, I don't know here. I feel like here people talk more about mental health, but I don't know if it's like we talk about it, but I don't know if in the United States there's a lot of tools for people to actually tackle it because therapy is so expensive. So it's like, okay, let's talk about it, but you don't get tools, you don't heal. And that's really hard. So I feel like I don't know if it's even worse than not talking about it. I don't know, but in Mexico and Latin America, we don't talk about it, I guess because we're ashamed. We're ashamed or scared about being vulnerable and saying, hey, there's something that's just not clicking inside of me. And our parents, it's funny because our parents, obviously, they love us and they want the best for us and they don't want us to suffer. But for the longest time, since they didn't know how depression or anxiety was called, they just, kept going through life and suffering. And there was like no name or last name for the illness. And so they think that because they went through that, we should also go through that. But now we're pinpointing, you know what, I'm losing my breath. You know what, this voice in my head is telling me something that I don't like. And then you start to kind of like bring it to the table as a conversation, And so it's very uncomfortable. So the younger generations, I feel we're talking more about it, but it's still uncomfortable. So they're kind of alone. We're alone. We don't know how to like approach it with our friends and family. So we're kind of like, who do I talk to? And it's really hard. And I feel it's just really just shame because also in South America and in Mexico, we're people of faith. We believe in God, Catholic or Christian, and we really believe that God will help us. And I also believe in God. Not in a religious religious way, but I also believe in God. But I also know that God created therapists. And God created so many things. If we go back in time, God created water, food, fruit. All these things help us. Why wouldn't He create therapy? For us to talk about our things that, we all have different voices inside of us that they want to have a conversation. And it's like that voice is just like, hey, let's talk. And you're just like, oh, no. And you just keep going on about your life. And then it starts to get louder because it's like, I want to talk, man. And you're like, no. Oh, girl, I want to talk. Hey. And then you can't sleep. And then you can't eat. And then you can't breathe. Because it's like, mana, and it's horrible. And then the outside voices of our families are like, no, tú no estás loca. You're not crazy. And you're like, fuck, am I? Like, I don't know anymore. Vamos a la iglesia. And you get another, and then you go to the church and you're like, God, I'm sorry, God, I don't know if I believe in you. But it has nothing at the same time, they're the same. So I feel like it's hard because it makes us look vulnerable. But us Latin Americans, it's okay to be vulnerable, but we're also strong. And strong people admit their faults and admit that they need help, you know? And I think it's just really hard, but I feel like the more and more we talk about it, and the more that we make it like natural to talk about it, the more it's gonna be easier for our parents or our tíos or our sister or brothers to really say, hey, you know, like I had my sister, my older sister. She was like, I see your martes de ansiedad. I feel that. Like I didn't know it was called ansiedad. I was like, really? You don't know what anxiety was? She's like, no. And she's 8 years older than me. And I was like, oh, so you felt anxiety? Yeah, just how you described it on your song. I'm like, and you didn't know what it was? She's like, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. She's like, but now I know. I'm like, oh, okay. So if we talk about these things, it's gonna be easier for us to heal, not only as a culture, not only as humans, but as a, you know, as a society, as a world, as generation, it's gonna heal us. Because we are, you know, ¿cómo se dice en inglés? We're mind, body, and soul. And we cannot just deny that, because in the 70s, people maybe thought it was just body, you know, and mind, I guess, but not soul, or I don't know. It's complicated.
Thank you so much for such a thoughtful answer. In addition to exploring new topics within your music, you've also explored new genres. And you've talked previously before about how you were a bit hesitant to go into these new genres, and that you felt pressure to keep your guitar close and maintain a singer-songwriter indie kind of image as a musician. But recently, in your new album, it's pretty clear that you've taken the leap to explore a fuller pop sound and let yourself delve into different styles of music. How was it leaving a genre that you were so familiar with?
Honestly, it was liberating. I know that many people would think, oh no, was it scary? I think I was so fed up with the criticism and like people wanting me to just stick to my guitar that I was like, F you, I'll do whatever I want, you know? Not in a disrespectful way, but like, you know what I'm saying? You know, you're like trying to improve somebody, like you're like, no, I am a bust. So I felt liberating, but at the same time, at night, I was like, Dios mío, hopefully this is right. But I feel like, honestly, one life, man, like why was I gonna just like stop there and be like, no, this is like the right route? Like I'm an independent artist I should be able to do whatever the heck I want, you know? And so, and it was also very interesting because I've always loved pop, like at heart. Like I love Shakira. Like Shakira was like, is still La Loba, you know? Like she, like I remember buying, I've said this story so many times, but I bought her cassette de Pies Descalzos, pirata. It cost me like $1. I was like, Dios mío, but I really want it. And I was just like, I don't know if I was like 10, and I went to the Yankees, and I was like, Mom, please buy me this. And then I bought it, and I listened to it, and I remember thinking, wow, like, I understood what a verse was, what a chorus was, what a pre-chorus was. And so I've always been like a pop girl at heart. And I've written like pop songs that I don't sing myself and I give to other artists because, I don't know, I feel like they're not like me completely, but I love pop and I feel like I wanted to go through that route without feeling guilty because it's my life, you know, and I know my music is a part of my life, but at the same time, this is my life, and I want to be free. And I don't want to give explanations as to why I'm going this way or that way. Like, I want to do whatever the heck I want because I can do it, you know?
Thank you. Your exploration of different music genres can also especially be seen in some of the collaborations that you've done. So, for example, you've collaborated with J Balvin, or even more recently with Karol G on their new title track. So, the artists that you've collaborated with, their trap and reggae styles vary a lot from your usual sound. So, what was it like collaborating with musicians that are often found outside of your habitual genre?
It was interesting. It was interesting because I would have never thought. I remember when J Balvin sent me like a voice message. I was like, it's funny because you listen to me to like reflect and cry, and I listen to you to party or work out. I'm like, that's funny. So when he invited me to his Vivas album, it was really sweet. And Carol too. Carol sent me also a voice message, and she's like, hey, I'm looking for songs. And I just thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna write this song, but I'm gonna think like Carol, like, you know, like a hot girl, como a troublemaker, you know, like the girl from class that always gets in trouble, but she's so pretty. And I'm like the nerd on the back, like, I'm scared. But she wants to be my friend. She's like, let's hang out. Oh my god, okay. So I thought, what would Carol say? And then me and my husband wrote Mañana será bonito together, because my husband, we've been working with together for the longest time. And so it was really fun, and at the same time, it was really interesting because it's a whole different way. And I also can see how when I write music for myself, I go so deep. And then when I was writing for Carol, it was so easy and fun, like, hey, you know, like, just as if I'm like in, I don't know, like having some drinks with my friends and just talking crap about our exes. And I was like, God, I should be like that. So it was really fun, and I feel like it makes me learn about myself, but also about other artists. And she was really happy, and yeah, it was great.
When exploring new genres, what do you think you specifically gain from from working and collaborating with others rather than exploring these new genres yourself?
So, can you?
Yeah, for sure. So, because you're looking into exploring new genres of music, what do you think you specifically gain from exploring these new genres with other people through a means of collaboration, rather than you pretty much just working on your own music and exploring new genres by yourself?
Okay, so collaborating is amazing. For the longest time, I would just write my songs by myself. I mean, obviously, my husband would help me after like the demo, but I would be very, I don't know if the word would be jealous, but like I would be like very like overprotective of my songs, and I'd be like, no, this is the structure, this is the way it sounds, and this is what it says, and if you would say, hey, but the accent, like you don't sing it like that, it goes like that, and that would be like very defensive. But then when I started collaborating with other songwriters, I noticed that like another universe would like open up, that I was like, oh wow, like if they would, you know, propose like a melody or a certain like way of thinking about what I was writing, I was like, oh wow, your perspective is so cool. And so I'm more now in songwriting sessions. I'm actually gonna have one the day after tomorrow. And so it's really cool because it's very fun. It's gonna sound crazy, but it's like making love. But not like that. But like making magic with someone that wants to open their whole universe in their head to you and be like, hey, here it is. You know, it's so cool. And I've learned so much, and I wish I could do it every day. Honestly, it's so fun. It's so fun. I just turned in another song that I was invited to write my interpretation of the song in Spanish, and I was like, "You sure?" They're like, "Yeah," and I did it, and it was funny because I did it like literally in like an hour, and then we recorded it, and the artist was really happy, and I was like, "Oh." So it's like a muscle that you have to work on, and it takes a lot of empathy and a lot of listening. And so, I don't know, it opens up a universe. It's very interesting and also very mysterious. It's really cool.
Thank you so much. For the sake of time, this will be my last question. We talked a lot about your musical journey during the past decade and how you've learned more about yourself and new sounds that you want to explore. Going forward, what can we anticipate from you in the future?
Oh my God. Honestly, right now, of course, I want to make new music. I don't know when though. Like for myself, or as in Carla Morrison, I want to take a break. But I only say this because this career takes a lot of time of your life, of your personal life. I know it's not like having a baby, but it is. Because it's all about that. You interviews, you have to tour, you have to do pictures, you have to blah, 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 blah. It's like a baby that's saying, ma, 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 ma. Literally. But that's my management, that's the band, that's the tour manager. Everybody's like, so what do you want it to look like? So what do you want to do? And I'm like, ah! So when we've been doing all this for 2 years. And so right now, when we finish, I want to take a long break. I don't know what I want to do. I definitely want to write a book. Oh! What was that? I love it! I love the tone. I want to write a book for sure, but I have no time to write it. But I want to write a book for sure. I want to write a couple of books. I have a couple of books in mind, but those take time. So don't say anything. I also want to, I would like to record stuff for sure. I just don't know, what I want to do. For sure, I want to live life. Because when I live life and I go through, my seasons or whatever, I tend to know what I want to write about and what I want to talk to my audience about. And I like developing concepts because I like the whole idea of a whole album and what it says and what it communicates and what you're going to get from it and if it's going to be good to you or, I know that my audience is not stupid at all. And if I'm flaking it or just half-assing it, you guys will be able to tell. And I don't think you guys deserve that at all. So I really take it very serious. And when I go on hiatus, it's more because I want to give, quality. It's not because, I don't want to see anyone or anything. It's more so that. So I think right now I want to just sit down at my piano and play. I want to learn how to use better Ableton Live because even though I know, I don't have time to practice it. I want to better my French, for sure. But yes, I want to write my book. I really want to. Yeah.
Thank you so much for all of your answers today. So that was all the time that we had for the moderated portion. Thank you once again so much for answering all my questions. And now we're going to be moving on to the audience Q&A. So if you have a question for Carla, please raise your hand and I'll call on you.
Yeah. Hi, I love your music. They have me around an album. Amazing. I also romanticize everything in my life, and I love writing, and I love putting all my feelings out on paper. I really felt connected when you said that you just sit on the subway and you see random connections to people, and you want to write about it immediately. Because that's exactly what I do. So my question is, what is a situation that's completely normal that you have found yourself trying to make a story out of, and has reflected in you anyway?
But what do I write?
Yeah, is there a situation that you just saw and then you wrote a song about it? Completely disconnected from your real life that you got inspiration from just something.
Oh, many. Oh shoot, let me think. Well, there's this song in Amor Supremo called Mil Años, and it's a song that's not about me. It's about a relationship I saw for a couple of years, happening and not happening and happening and not happening, but I could tell vividly that both of the parties wanted it to happen, but it was never good timing. So I wrote that song about that. Another song that was funny, but when I wrote it, I was actually riding the metro, and I saw this picture in the Paris metro of a woman. It was something like a fashion moment, like a fashion, I don't know, como se dice, marketing. But it made me think about women and how many women have inspired so many poets. And so I had this in my mind, like go back and forth, back and forth. And then when I went home, I wrote Divino, which is the song from El Renacimiento. And it was thinking about how Neruda or Lorca or Benedetti would write a poem to a woman. And if I could do that now, like in their, like I guess, como in their place. So there's many different songs that I've written that come out of that. Sometimes they're just like things that like I think about or that I like imagine. Not all of my songs are about like my exes or anything. Many are songs that I've even written to my parents, but nobody knows which ones. But yeah, I thought.
Over there?
Hi, Carla. I'm trying not to cry. You're like my favorite artist. I've been shaking the whole time, but I just want to like ask you about a specific song. It's called Todo Pasa. I've like dealt with anxiety for a really long time, and that song always brings me a lot of joy. And I just want to hear from you, like, what exactly like were you thinking about when you were writing this song?
What was I thinking when I wrote this song? Okay, so this song I wrote. Actually, I wrote this song, it was probably one of the first of Amor Supremo, because I was still touring De Gemera, and my career was booming in Mexico and everything was happening, and I felt super just sad and like everything was happening and I wasn't happy and it wasn't what I was expecting, and I felt very burnt out. And I remember I was just really sad. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna write this song and I'm just gonna say to myself that todo pasa and that everything's gonna be okay, even though I actually don't believe it. I was really, really sad. And so it's funny because this song, when I wrote it, I was like full blown crying and just upset and like pissed, like, oh, me caen gordos todos, like I was just so mad. Because honestly, people were being very mean to me about my weight, about my tattoos, about the way I talk, because soy mal hablada, soy grosera. I mean, no soy grosera, but I say a lot of bad words. I curse like a sailor. And so people would be like, oh, like, they were always criticizing me and comparing me to my colleagues. And so I just felt like anything that I would do was wrong. I was like, man, like, F off, man, like, leave me alone. And so I felt but at the same time, it was like, oh, do this festival, do this, do that. There were a couple of festivals where people literally flipped me off from, like the public. It was awful, and I just felt so, like, run down, like, I didn't know what to do anymore. And so I wrote this song kind of like really burned out, but it's been beautiful because this song has been tattooed so many times. Do you have it tattooed?
Not yet.
Oh! You're like, but it's been so many times like that, like, people have tattoos and people bring it up a lot. And every time I sing it live, people cry so much. It's so special, and that's where I feel like I'm so glad I allow myself to be vulnerable and just so true, because even though it's a little bit embarrassing at the moment, like when I write it, I'm like, ugh. When I see people, heal through it, it's like, oh wow, or it's like their mantra, like todo pasa, todo pasa, todo pasa, and I'm like, wow, I had no idea that could happen. So thank you.
Thank you.
Sí. couple of different ones, like, in my mind, honestly. I don't want to say, because then, you know, I don't want to say, but I want it to be special, and I want to take time with it, because it's not just going to be like that. Because I have a couple of different ones. Pero, you'll probably like it if you like one, because that's that prom.
Over there?
Hi Carla, how are you?
Good, thank you.
First things first, my cousin would kill me if I didn't ask for this. He was asking me because I was asking him that I was going to be here. He was like, oh, dile que mande un saludo. Because he's from Modesto, he wanted to go see you, and the concert was sold out. He was kind of bummed out. So if I could just get like a quick little video, I also have a question, but he was asking her. His name is Jose Aguilar. So if I could just get that real quick.
But do you want to do it later?
Oh, we can do it later too. Yeah, but I didn't know you
So
were
you can actually be close to the camera.
Oh, okay. So I just didn't know if you were going to do that or anything. But my question is, you're going to take a hiatus. I just wanted to know where in the world do you want to travel to while you're doing that?
I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it, but it will not be the U.S. And it will not be Mexico. It will probably be somewhere weird, but yeah, I like going to weird places. For sure. Lejos. Are you ever gonna be there? Oh my God.
Second floor in the center.
Awesome. Hi, thank you so much for being here. My name is Tristan. I really resonate with you. I really love when you said like music is all about connections. I feel like I'm a product of like the artists I grew up listening to. What's one artist I just listen to their music and their life stories? You just resonate so much. And also as a fun question, will you ever write a jingle for Target?
Oh my God. Okay, would I write a jingle for Target? Of course. Claro, imagínate el dinero. Of course. And what was the other question? Oh, an artist, right? That I listen to a lot, that I go back to. I mean, I think I always go back to Patsy Cline. Mucho. I really like her. More so in Christmas time. I love to listen to Patsy Cline. Shakira, I always go back to her too. All my 90s, like 90s classics, is see. What I usually listen to right now that I really like is usually I listen to music that has a voice, like usually just like acoustic guitar or piano or classical piano. I don't listen to a lot of music with vocals just because I'm always working. I'm like, oh, what did she say? What? Like, and I'm like, oh, that was beautiful. And so I have to like limit myself to what I listen to. But yeah, yo creo que eso sounds good, I guess. Thank you.
We have time for 3 more audience questions, way in the back.
No, nunca. Bueno, te voy a contestar en inglés porque todos entiendan. I've never really written a song about like crossing the border. I should. That's a good idea. I feel so, I mean, it's been such a long time that I haven't felt that, the way I felt that at that moment. But I think I should. I think it would be really interesting to go back to that feeling. Yeah. Thank you. That's a good idea. Over there?
Te voy a preguntar en español, ¿qué es lo que haces cuando estás como en un bloque mental que no te deja ni escribir canciones, ni te deja salir a veces como del drama? ¿Qué es lo que tú has sentido que te ha ayudado para poder seguir? Aparte de tu música.
So what do I do when I have writer's block? See? Okay. So usually writer's block comes out of judgment, hardcore judgment against oneself. That's what writer's block is. And usually we're comparing ourselves to everybody. And to everybody we know and we like and we admire. And we feel like more so like whatever we would bring to the table wouldn't be as valuable because we think everybody else is special, more special than what we are. So I try to first tackle that. Where is that coming from? Instead of, because for the longest time, there was a moment in my life that, and I'm sure, it will come and go, but that I experienced writer's block for years. And I even feel like some songs were written out of trying to make a point that I could actually make a song, or it was hard, it was weird. And until I realized that I had to work on my own self and my own self-love. And knowing that whatever I bring to the table is special in its own way, and it's okay. So when I have writer's block, I try to tackle that first, see wait, why am I doubting myself? Am I looking at Instagram too much? Am I listening to too many songs that I wish I would have written? Or am I thinking that everybody's super cool and I'm not? Am I even studying? Why am I having such a hard time? And then when I go through it and I kind of go through a little mini healing session with myself for a couple of days, I just do the things that I like and I allow myself to just write and not judge everything that I write, not judge everything that I sing, and also come back to that as a hobby, not as work. Because for me, it's literally work. But whenever I feel I don't have nothing to offer, I just do it without thinking too much of it. And I'm just whatever. I just kind of take it as una canción más. And then it ends up working out because I'm not being too judgmental out of it. But it's hard, and more so if nowadays social media and so many artists coming out and everybody has a huge better idea than anyone else, and we're all trying. So I feel if we try to be more in the present and not always try and be entertained, that helps because you give yourself space to wonder, to think, to come with ideas, to listen to whatever you have going on inside of you. If you're too busy inside, como con mucho just ruido, a lot of noise, then you're not going to be able to listen to your actual beautiful ideas, because we all have beautiful ideas and songs are everywhere. It's just that you have to be able, willing to listen.
We have time for one last audience question. In the center with the hat.
Hola Carla, my question is, I remember for the song Pajarito del Amor, you were saying that your grandpa was always going to come back as a pajarito, and your mom had said, ese pajarito es su abuelo. And so my question was, for inviting collaborations like Natalia Lafourcade, how is it when you invite someone and make sure that they're telling the story right, the way that you want it to be portrayed during a collaboration?
Oh, well, you know what? This is gonna sound cocky, but all of my collaborations, besides Natalia, all of them I've been invited. So all the collaborations that you see on Spotify or Apple Music that I'm in, people have invited me. I haven't invited myself. or I haven't been hey, I want to be on your album. No, it's been an invite. So it's been the other way around. But with Natalia, I did invite her. That was my actual first person that actually asked, hey, And so, but it was very easy with her because at that moment, it was more so that I wanted her voice to be in it. I was so enamored with the fact that she was gonna be in it. She was like my soul sister. She was helping me out to put this album. It's like nothing can go wrong. I wasn't really thinking like, oh, maybe she won't do it right, you know? And then sometimes too, when you pick someone to sing, for instance, I have Eliera in my other album. She's another person that I've invited. I think those are the only two, I think. I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. But you also have to trust on their talent and what they're bringing on. But for example, Elsa Yelmar, when she invited me to Ojos Noche, she invited me and she sent me, she was like, oh, I want to invite you. And I was like, okay. So I was really happy because I loved her song. But when I sent her my part and then she sent me her part, I told her, I was like, it's not, girl, it doesn't sound that great. Like, but I didn't say it that way. I said, it doesn't sound como que tú y yo estamos rotas de corazón. Like, I want this, like, I would love for it to be like a conversation of two girls with broken hearts. Like, how can we do this? Because we're like sisters and we're going through this shit together. Like, if you can please, like, put a little more como sentimiento. I know you're already putting in it, pero como más, así como this time around it's with me, you know? And she's like, you're right, gracias por decirme, you know? She was really happy and she's like, thank you. And then she did it and it came out amazing. And then she told me like, thank you for pushing me because no lo había pensado. And I don't know, I didn't expect for you to tell me this, you know? And so it was really cool. But porque yo lo que quería era que, what I wanted is for the song to do great for her, you know? And so, and it's not that it wasn't, but I just felt like I was all dramatic and she was like super sweet. And I was like, girl, they just broke our hearts. Like, be sad about it, you know? And she's like, no, you're right. So that I think that was the only time that I actually said to someone something. But I'm usually very direct. I'm a little como. I don't mean to be that way, I'm just norteña, you know, that's how we are. But do we have more time? I would love to answer a little more. I'm down to do it. Yeah. And go back because there's so many hands.
Right behind the person who just asked.
What's the favorite song that you worked on and what inspired you to work on that song? El Renacimiento.
Pero, ¿qué dijeron?
¿Qué canción fue como la que más te gustó escribir?
Oh.
El Renacimiento y qué te inspiró?
Oh, God. I think the song that I mostly enjoyed from El Renacimiento to write, they were all very nice to make. I think one of the songs that was, they were all fun, but I feel like maybe Hacia Adentro was like one of the ones that was like very special to write because I wasn't gonna write that song. But my husband was like, hey, like, ¿qué pasó? He's like, all the songs are pretty and everything, but I feel like there's not one song that's actually like telling the story of what you went through. And I was like, so? He's like, you don't want to go there? I'm like, no. And he's like, why not? I'm like, no. And I was like, and I started crying. And he was like, okay, there's obviously something there, you know? And I was like, no, because it was hard for me, like the anxiety and everything. And like, if I write a song about that, like, I don't want to go back to that scary place where I felt suicidal and I felt awful. And he was like, I know, but I think your fans will be happy to have that, you know? And he was like, and I know the people that, like, you know, I know people that follow your music and I think it would be so special, you know? And I remember, like, he did a couple of, like, a chord progression and I started to sing and, like, the demo was just me, like, like, I'm just crying because I couldn't even speak. And then I actually recorded it. So that was one. And la muchacha de blanco, yeah, you. Because you, yeah. Yes, you keep going on my pobrecita.
And
And Todo fue por amor is like a really special song for me and my mom. That's one of my most favorite.
Ay,
Sorry,
baby.
I'm getting dragging.
Well, Todo fue por amor is a song that I was actually asked. Gil is my manager. He's right here. And Gil calls me in January. I'm like, Gil, let me have my pozole. And he's like, there's this movie, and they want to see if you want to watch the movie and see if you have like a song. And I was like, oh, okay, but it's January 1st. And he's like, I know, but it's really special. I'm like, okay, I'll watch the movie. I'll see what happens. And so I watched the movie, and honestly, it was a little surprising to me because usually when I write a song, I'm going through something or I see someone going through something, but I never watched the movie and be like, okay, I want to make a song. And so it's about, so Maria Rosa, a nun from Honduras that helped like 87,000 kids that were like huérfanos and that they were by themselves. And so when I actually sat down at the piano, I was like, I think this lady did, so Maria Rosa did everything for love, because it's not like she was getting more money or followers or anything. Like she really did it because she just loved helping. And so when I sat down at the piano, I literally prayed. I said, Diosito, please send me a song. Let me express whatever I need to express through this song. And I started playing it. And it came out so quick. Like, it came out probably like in 20 minutes, the whole song. And I felt like Soto Maria was there. I know this sounds scary and strange, but I felt like Soto Maria was there and my dad was there too. Like I felt like it was like they were telling me what como unconditional love is, like universal love, but what you do for someone that you love so much and that you just want to see them happy and fly and have their dreams come true. And so it was crazy because I'm not a mom. I mean, I am a mom to two dogs, but that's different. So I was like, but I don't know how it is to have like an actual, kid or something like that. So I felt like my dad kind of told me, this is how it is, Nika. And so it came out really easy. And it's a song that a lot of people like tell me that, that it's their like mom and daughter or papa or tío or something like that. And it's beautiful. And it's a song that it was really easy to make. It was so easy that when we were gonna send it off, we were like, I hope this is good. Like this was too fun to make. And literally the next day, Gil calls me and he's like, because it was more so for the credits of the movie. And he calls me, he's like, they want it to be the song. They want like 5 versions of it. I'm like, what? How many? Why? And he's like, in piano, in like hum, and like con cuerdas, everything. Like it's gonna be the theme of the whole movie. And I was like, oh my God. And it was there for a year. Nobody knew about it until like the movie came out. So I'm glad you like it. Thank you.
Unfortunately, for like room reservation reasons, we genuinely only have time for one more question. So feel free to pick whoever you want.
Dios mío, el muchacho. He was like,
I just want to say that I resonate a lot with music. As someone who grew up partially with violence in the most marginal places of Mexico, I feel like your music and someone has dealt with loss and just like overall how crude and cruel life can be, but at the same time the beautiful parts of it. Is there any, you mentioned, are there any like literary writers or poets? Is there anyone or maybe specific artwork that help you write songs?
that helped me create songs?
Yes, like inspire you, just like poets or literature writers.
Oh, you know what? No. No. I mean it in a honest way, in a way that, going back to Tecate is such a small town. art like that wasn't like available to me. So I would have to be very creative with whatever inspiration I would get. And honestly, I wrote, this is gonna sound, I don't know, I hope this doesn't sound awful, but I had to write poetry. I wrote poetry before I read it. And I think it was because of music. It was because of Shakira, Coldplay, like artists that really inspired me, because that's how I knew poetry existed. Then I knew that poets existed, and that like there were books about poetry and things like that. And so I was like, oh, okay. But then I would read them and I thought, oh, they're so abstract. Like I wouldn't really relate. So I feel like, honestly, the music or the art that would really, really inspire me and still inspires me till this day to write music is rancheras. Rancheras is the music that really, really like cuts deep into my soul. Every time I listen to like, ay Dios mío, like Dos Monedas, songs like that are very, very special. Usually those songs are like the songs that literally like me prenden el fuego. Like it's like wow, how can anybody write something so beautiful? But like as an art, as he is in like a poet or something. I mean, I did write, like I said, when I like thought about these poets, and I do have my favorite. I love Benedetti. Actually, his voice is always on my concerts, saying a little poem in the middle of the concert. That's Benedetti. I love Lorena Bronsky. Oh gosh, she's amazing. She's Argentinian and she's amazing. But really, I think probably the art that has inspired me maybe recently, like in Paris, whenever I go to like museums, what inspires me of those paintings and things like that is the time they took. Knowing that good things take time. And you can't really like make everything quick just because the algorithm and people might forget you and no. Like good things take time. Whenever I see a painting, I'm like, this took what? Like 40 years? Like wow, or like a sculpture or things like that. So I feel like it inspires me that way, but I feel like in Mexico, our culture is full of so many beautiful like rituals and things that just remind me why I sing the way I sing, why I write the way I write, and why I do what I do. Is because we're full of passion, emotion, faith, love. We really want to survive, but even when we're dead, we're still here, and we're remembered by so many. So it's beautiful. So I feel like I understand you and I see what you're saying. And I also had a very rough childhood as well. And it's art is like the place to be when you want to heal. It's just like try whatever you want to try. It will make sense at some point.
Thank you. I love you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions, and especially thank you to Carla for taking time out of your schedule to come speak with us today. I'll be handing the event back over to Anna and Lily.
Okay, thank you, Claire and Carla, for the wonderful conversation. And with that, at every event, we like to thank our speaker with a custom-made poster, and tonight is no different. And so this poster was made by our communications members, Carolyn and Kelsey. And as hinted at the beginning, one lucky audience member will be getting a poster as well. And the person, I am reading off their name, this is randomly generated, Michelle Hernandez. Please come up after the event. And before we conclude, I'd like to recognize that the forum is wholly run by UC Berkeley students. who collectively helped contribute to tonight's event behind the scenes. And so I would like to especially thank event manager Lily Gonzalez, moderator Claire Chen, hosting designers Caroline Nguyen, Hassan Khan, graphics designer Eva Sin, Caitlin Wang, events lead, again Lily Gonzalez, communications lead Iris Chow, tech lead Kelly Tang, and outreach Claire Shintani and Nura Nazrul. Thank you guys very much. Some of our upcoming events. November 14th, we have Mel Willis, founder of Indigo Village and Soso Market. November 29th, Freddie Gibbs and Ben Lambert, Grammy-nominated American rapper and coach and manager. Please show up if you are interested. And last but not least, please stay seated in your seats so we can take a group picture with Carla together. So with all of the audience and maybe with Carla standing here so that we can take a picture from this angle. Unfortunately, given the number of people in attendance, we won't be able to do personal meet and greet or personal photos with Carla. So if possible, after the event, we're going to start exiting from the two entrances that we came in from. And yeah,
Can I say something before we end?
Yes, please.
I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming, for making the time, for your smiles and your eyes que me están viendo hasta acá. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for inviting me, but thank you for coming and for just making a space for Spanish music, for music that has a lot of heart and a lot of romanticism. And no tengan miedo de ser quienes son. Que no les digan quiénes son, ustedes saben quiénes son. Yo sé que vivir en otro lugar, en otra tierra que no es suya, emigrar por necesidad y no por decisión propia, puede ser muy difícil. Pero todo va a tener sentido en su momento. Yo sé que a veces uno se quiere rendir, y más en la escuela, y más cuando estás tratando de encontrar el camino en tu vida y no sabes si el mundo como está ahorita no ayuda. Pero van a estar bien. En algún punto todo va a tener sentido. Y yo sé que vienen y me miran y piensan que a lo mejor yo tengo las respuestas, pero yo estaba igual que ustedes a su edad. Yo ahora estoy en otro lugar. También todavía chingándole y sufriéndole y encontrando mis respuestas también. Porque yo ahora me encuentro en otro momento en mi vida donde me voy a hacer otras preguntas pues muy cabronas también. Y es difícil, la vida no se pone más fácil, solo aprendes a tolerarlo de una mejor manera. Y lo empiezas a entender y todo empieza a tener un poquito, las piezas empiezan a embonar. Y si se sienten solos y lejos y como que nadie los entiende, hay mucha gente que los entiende, pero aquí en Estados Unidos la gente no se habla. Se van al mall y no se miran para un café. Hagan espacio para conversar entre ustedes, para compartir sus penas y sus glorias, y todo va a estar bien, se los prometo que de verdad todo va a pasar y todo se va a acomodar. Todos tienen una historia, todos son unas estrellas y van a brillar en su momento correcto. Muchas gracias.